But the real question, which I was trying to come back to, is what are the conditions of finding an ethos in and through the practice of thought? And that engages all of the questions that you're talking about, language, but also remembrance and history, dwelling, all of it in that sense. So I maybe I didn't bring that out sufficiently, but I was trying to attend to what I think you are pointing to with this reference to ethos as opposed to home. I don't know if that satisfies you, but I was trying to go in that direction.
No, I was just trying to understand why names of countries seem to predominate the questioning.
It's almost, I mean, in that point, following Grenell, it's almost, these are almost like corporate logos. America names a historical movement, and Europe, Grenell is claiming, represents a divergence in relation to that historical configuration. And the question I was using, and in fact taking this from Grenell, is, well, does this have something to do with my experience of thought and the possibility of finding an ethos?
Well, perhaps connecting to that question and the spur of the moment, a speculative question as well. But I think I had a similar line of thought. Wouldn't it be, I mean, isn't it putting a unnecessary, or at least a unfortunate, socially constructed filter on thought, and if not a straitjacket, then in any case a limitation, that one needs to think in terms of political geography, and rather than, or would it be possible to say think thought out of thought? And I'm not suggesting that one should disconnect it from environment or from context, just look at context slightly differently. So not put this systemic, socio-political systemic pressure on it, and rather than define it in, I don't know, in terms of local community and perhaps local physical environment, rather than these broad political categories, which well, I'm sure they have some kind of meaning, but they also take away a lot of meaning. So the question is, would that be, is there a solution to that? I mean, first of all, would you agree that it sort of restrains thinking? And secondly, do you see any solution? And please be speculative.
I think you appear to be pointing to a solution, which is that if one thinks this activity of thought from a site, a more local site, then there may be perhaps a way of engaging this question of ethos or dwelling in a way that is more concrete. And I would certainly accept that, and I would use that along the line. I would follow that line of thinking along the lines that I took a few moments ago when I was saying, how I would retain some optimism when I was writing about a pedagogy that would allow a concrete engagement with language and and history and so forth. So yes, when thought happens in what I was just calling a kind of counter movement, or when an engagement happens whereby a community forms, it is indeed in a particular site, and that insofar as there's a kind of a breaking with those broader socio-political determinations that you're talking about when that happens. But the question that I've been raising here is it possible that that historical movement that to which Grenell appends the name America, is it possible that is actually destructive of that possibility, or in somehow undermining, or somehow inhibiting? And so I started out by saying I cannot accept the idea that thought is a function of place in that broad sense. I think I started by saying exactly what you have proposed, but the question, then I bring in the quasi-autobiographical thing. I mean, I've also heard this from many others, but I brought in the autobiographical thing to say, well, yes, but something else is going on, perhaps, and that's why I was trying to ask this question about the relation between Europe and America in terms of these broader historical developments. So, yes, in part to your question, but at the same time, as I say, I want to be taking seriously some of these broad issues that Granell is raising here, and and really giving them their weight. What about the developments in advanced capitalism in North America and the determination of work as production, and so on and so forth. What about the relation to religious experience and the kind of the history that's involved in that experience? He was talking about the ablation of the religious experience, the ablation of political being, and then the ablation of thought by virtue of the way in which it answers to this notion of productivity and advanced development. So all I was trying to do there was saying, okay, let's, here's a rather powerful argument which maybe I need to be looking at seriously in relation to my initial idea that I should be able to do this thinking anywhere. And that or not anywhere, but I should be able to create a site anywhere, from a particular engagement with others in relation to this thought. So I'm hesitant to give up this question that Granell is asking, and hesitant to give up this experience that I've been through, which is of a feeling of increasing abstraction, increasing destruction of conditions for the kind of thinking to which I committed myself some 35 years ago. So, maybe this is just, someone said when I first started presenting the claim of language and I was doing that kind of institutional analysis, someone said, "Oh, Chris, is it really so bad in Binghamton?" And I said, yeah, maybe that's all it is. Maybe I just had some really bad luck in terms of where I've ended up. But my immediate answer was, I have a feeling that I'm sort of on the vanguard of nasty developments, in the academy. And all I've seen since then is I was right, in that respect.
That's a very good ending. Nasty development. Thank you very much.